Kiro pressed the button again, even though he wasn't entirely sure what it did. The device rattled like a mechanical sneeze and a burst of blue sparks shot into the air. Sorry, he mumbled, brushing off the smoke with the sleeve of his jacket, which promptly stuck to his hand like a clingy pet. The hum of the machine crescendoed, wobbled, and then, pop! A figure appeared, hovering midair in a shimmer of light. Kiro blinked twice. A girl stood there, looking almost human, but her ears stretched long and elegant, swaying like twin banners in a gentle breeze. She raised one of them in a theatrical salute. "Well, this is unexpected," Kiro said, trying to sound calm while simultaneously thinking that maybe the cookie he had shoved in the device earlier was a bad idea. "I could say the same about you," the girl replied, her voice melodic and teasing. "Do humans always greet strangers by nearly electrocuting themselves?" She twirled a lock of her dark hair, and one of her ears gave an involuntary little wiggle. Kiro laughed nervously. "I was, testing gravity. Very scientific." Ilara's eyes sparkled. A human scientist? I can relate. I once tried to convince a Virelian frog to levitate. It nearly chewed my notebook." She leaned forward, grinning, and Kiro noticed how her ears seemed almost alive, twitching with every emotion. "So, you're not a hologram virus?" Kiro asked, half serious. "Not today," she said with a wink, stepping lightly as if the air itself might tickle her feet. "I'm Ilara. And I think your planet owes mine a thank you for finally getting proper interstellar communication." Kiro chuckled. "I'm Kiro. And my parents are probably going to freak out if they see you." He gestured toward the half-open door where a shadow moved. Ilara squinted, then waved dramatically at the approaching figure. "Your humans look like they need coffee, or a gentle scare." They laughed, and the awkwardness of first contact melted into curiosity. Kiro showed her a floating model of Lumira's orbit, which promptly shot into the ceiling when he gestured too enthusiastically. Ilara ducked, her ears brushing the ceiling tiles, and giggled. "Your gravity is playful," she said, picking up the model with delicate fingers. By the time the sun dipped behind Lumira's silver mountains, Kiro and Ilara were exchanging stories about absurd festivals, mischievous pets that defied logic, and foods that bubbled like tiny suns. Each tale carried a joke, a shared gasp, a laugh that felt like it could travel light years. When the device finally fizzled into silence, Kiro realized he wasn't alone anymore. A friendship had begun, strange, unexpected, and entirely unstoppable. If you like, I can start Chapter 2 next, keeping this rich, humorous, and sci-fi tone with their playful interplanetary adventures. Do you want me to continue? Kiro adjusted the coordinates on his little portal device, squinting at the flickering readout. "Okay, if I press this button I should— oh no." Before he could stop himself, a bubble of light engulfed him, and with a pop that sounded suspiciously like a sneeze, he landed upside down in what looked like a garden made of floating, glowing plants. Ilara's ears twitched in delight as she hovered nearby, giggling so hard she nearly toppled a hovering flower. "You're inverted," she said, circling him as if inspecting a curious new species. "Is that normal for humans?" Kiro wiggled his fingers, trying not to topple over further. "I swear this device has a sense of humor. Or maybe it's judging my fashion choices." He looked down at his muddy jacket. "Yeah, definitely judgment." Ilara extended a hand, and her long, graceful ears shimmered with the faint glow of Virelia's energy crystals embedded in the tips. "Well, welcome to my garden of improbable physics. Watch your head, the levitating toads like to high-five unsuspecting visitors." Kiro's head jerked as a small green toad bounced off his shoulder, leaving a streak of sparkly slime. He yelped and slipped sideways into a hovering puddle of liquid light. "I knew this was a bad idea," he muttered, dripping with glittering goo. "Bad ideas are usually the most fun," Ilara said with a wink, her ears flicking as she activated a floating platform beneath his feet. He righted himself, spluttering, and then they both laughed, a sound that bounced off the suspended plants like a chorus. They spent the afternoon testing gravity-defying swings, racing hoverbugs through twisted loops of crystalline vines, and inventing silly games where Ilara's long ears doubled as slingshots for tiny energy spheres. Every time Kiro made a clumsy mistake, she made a dramatic, exaggerated, "oh no," that ended with her ear tapping him on the head. Between games they traded stories of their worlds. Kiro recounted the absurdity of humans debating the best flavor of floating ice cream, while Ilara told tales of Virelia's moonlit skyfish races that left spectators dizzy with excitement. They laughed at their differences, teasing each other about ridiculous customs, but the laughter always carried curiosity, a desire to understand one another more deeply. Eventually, Kiro noticed small drones hovering at the edge of the garden, their lenses blinking. Do you see those? Ilara's ears twitched sharply. The Interstellar Patrol. They've been curious about us ever since our first quantum bubble incident. She grinned mischievously. Let's just hope they enjoy a comedy show rather than a courtroom drama. With a shared glance, they prepared to face the patrol, knowing their friendship had already begun to bend the rules of gravity, reality, and interplanetary protocol in ways no adult could predict, and neither of them could stop laughing. If you want, I can now start Chapter 3, where the patrol arrives and Kiro and Ilara use their friendship and ingenuity to resolve the tension while keeping the story funny and sci-fi rich. Do you want me to continue? Kiro peeked around the corner of Ilara's floating garden, trying not to giggle as the patrol drones hovered closer, their light scanning every glowing leaf and wobbling platform. Ready? He whispered. Ilara's ears twitched in anticipation, brushing the air like they were conducting an invisible orchestra. Ready, she said, her voice smooth but playful. Let's show them friendship, not a courtroom. Kiro pressed a button on his device, and the garden erupted into a chaotic spectacle. Flowers spun in midair, sending trails of sparkling pollen like fireworks. Ilara tapped her long ears on floating crystals, sending beams of rainbow light arcing across the sky. The patrol blinked, their sensors overloaded with the sheer absurdity of the display. One drone tilted sideways and a tiny holographic smiley face floated from it, clearly confused. You call this diplomacy? One voice crackled from a hovering speaker. Exactly. Ilara shouted, twirling midair as a levitating toad bounced between her ears. Diplomacy with flair and style. Kiro laughed, adjusting the gravity fields beneath the floating platforms to form a shimmering maze of light. An entertainment, guaranteed to make your day at least 73% better. The patrol drones hesitated, scanning the garden again. Kiro noticed one drone's lens flicker like it was laughing. If a drone could laugh, and he realized something important. No amount of rules or protocols could outmatch creativity and connection. When the display finally ended with a gentle explosion of harmless glowing sparks, silence hung in the air. Kiro and Ilara floated together, dripping with glittering pollen and mud, grinning like two children who just pulled off the greatest prank in the galaxy. Impressive, a voice said, warm now, tinged with amusement. Your friendship is remarkable. Perhaps unusual but remarkable. Ilara's ears flicked happily. See? Told you it works. The patrol lifted off, leaving behind a hum of approval and a promise that no interference would follow, at least not today. Kiro exhaled, feeling a weight lift. We did it, he said, shaking glitter from his hair. We actually did it. And we didn't even break anything serious, Ilara teased, brushing a bit of pollen off his shoulder with her ear. Kiro laughed and realized how much he had changed since the first spark of light had brought her into his room. He was braver, more imaginative, and far more patient, with himself and with others, human or alien. Most importantly, he understood that curiosity and laughter could forge bonds stronger than fear, distance, or even gravity. As they floated side by side, watching the twin suns dip below the mountains of Lumira, Kiro and Ilara began planning their next adventure, whispering jokes only they would understand. Somewhere between quantum bubbles, levitating toads, and interstellar pranks, they had built something permanent. A friendship that truly spanned worlds. And for the first time, Kiro felt that the universe wasn't vast and unknowable, it was full of possibilities, laughter, and endless surprises.